Okay, people. I actually had a sleep. Fucking miracles. Sweating like a pig, but you know that's a post-traumatic stress does to you, and reliving in this case. I had this fucking weird dream last night. Honestly, I wasn't dreaming. I was actually thinking about my case, and I kept asking myself, why am I in this situation? And I came to this conclusion. This is just from sleeping and thinking. Now, McGreevy, who we had disputes, and he claimed that he had a conversation with me in relation to a $20,000 payment. The evidence proves otherwise. He then covered up the false declaration that he made in my name and got Ailsa Duffy to do likewise, covered up, and Reese Tapsell and all the rest of them. So he's leaving out all his own criminality, and he's taken forward the 1% chance that someone's actually going to believe the shite that he fucking comes out with. And so that leaves you in a very tricky situation of how jurisprudence goes from the rule of law to one person then committing their own crimes to give themselves credibility or character or whatever you want to call it. So you go on the attack of the victim, and you use fear and violence to do it every step of the way. So you then have this situation where you've crossed the boundary from civil and following your own rule of law and jurisprudence to that of committing your own crimes, which is misfeasance in public office. Everybody appears to enjoy covering this up on behalf of McGreevy and all the staff and all the management and the Crown Law Office and the police and the private investigators and all the money, all the millions of dollars that they wasted. Literally, for this guy trying to save his own reputation and his own character, which he can't. It's impossible. Other than within his own realms of his own colleagues who want to listen to all this fucking garbage. But this guy has I think he's got a reputation for hiding behind fear and violence. I think it's I think there's a lot. I heard a few things earlier in my case in relation to him using fear and violence with other victims. So they're probably too frightened to come out in the public arena, but this is what you have to put up with McGreevy. McGreevy at all times turns himself into this "I'm a victim" bullshit. And I feel sorry for people at the bottom. Well, I feel sorry for people with a conscience, you know. I don't feel sorry for those who want to make their way to the top, who are malicious little bastards. You know, I got no time for them. But there is a lot of people at the bottom who, they go in to do their job every day, and they're not in control. They're doing what they're told to do. So, you know, you can't blame the people at the bottom who are simply just trying to live their normal lives, you know. As much as you disagree with what they're doing, and as much as you disagree with what they say, you can't blame them. They're following the instructions of a vigilante and a state terrorist. You know, it's like a soldier in ISIS listening to Osama bin Laden. You know, that's how I class McGreevy, actually. You know, he had that much power that he could do anything he wanted. I think people were more frightened of him than anything else. And that's in the literal sense, seriously. He's a very dangerous person whenever you go out to use fear and violence against people. That doesn't make you any better than a terrorist. It doesn't make you any less than a terrorist. So anyway, I got to this thinking that, right, he's taken my life from a civil jurisdiction and committed his crimes. And then everybody's covering up his crimes. Now, you then have the issues then of the post-traumatic stress, the trauma, the abuse, the threats, the intimidation, the violence, the state criminal kidnapping, the acts of extortion, theft, robbery, pillaging and plundering, the criminal blackmail, the criminal holding to ransom, the ongoing everyday abuse, and then all of a sudden Dr. Brett Roach commits suicide, all my medical notes and files disappear. But the one interesting thing that I got in my mind when I was sleeping no one documented these injuries. These are injuries. Post-traumatic stress is injuries caused by the malicious, criminal, abusive, violent actions of a vigilante and a state terrorist. And if you don't have those injuries documented, Dr. Brett Roach had a lot of it documented. Because I told him exactly everything that was going on for the time he was involved in my case. Dr. Alan Dickey was told a lot. Dr. Martin Eade at the start was told exactly what was taking place, but he was actually friends with Greg Cheatham. That's probably why it ended up in the path that it ended up in. And Greg Cheatham actually referred me to Dr. Martin Eade in relation to, he's a great pain specialist. Yeah, he's fucking great, alright. He knows how to screw a fucking victim's life over. But anyway, so you get to the point where these injuries that are being caused to you and leaving you with post-traumatic stress are not being documented. And they're not being put forward as part of your injuries. So ACC themselves are literally not working on the post-traumatic stress and the injuries that have been caused to you, because they're trying to put down post-traumatic stress to my original accident and avoiding the fact that they're involved in corruption and criminality, abuse, threats, intimidation and violence. You could look at it as misfeasance or medical malpractice, and doctors today working from nothing. But at the same time, civil jurisdictions, you know, that's just a small little part of what's going on in this case. But in the literal sense, McGreevy has literally used fear and violence to criminally contain my life. And with all of the help and all the support from all his colleagues, he's literally turned my life into ACC's prisoner, hostage and captive, because the legislation allows him to do that. And he gets to walk free, and I get to remain in this stagnant, criminally blackmailing, criminally holding to ransom situation, dealing with half-wits. You know, it's like people who are working from a file that 10 years is missing, so they haven't even got a fucking clue what they're doing. And they're going, you're only covered for chronic pain. Well, you say, if I'm only covered for chronic pain, why was I sent down a path of psychiatrist? Why was I having to see psychologists? Why did I have to get sent to abacus? Why did I? You could get a million whys. So, and these people aren't answering the questions that you're asking. So, you're literally being singled out, isolated, alienated, and I just got a text message there from my advocate. He put forward the email for the meeting, and they're taking it under advisement. Yeah, I wonder what they're advising each other on. How are we going to handle this? How are we going to hide away now? How are we going to avoid answering the questions? Yeah, it's probably about it. Or we'll only do it on this agenda. Fuck off. You're going to do it on the agenda that's needed to restore my life to its former being. And that's telling you straight here on this video too. And if you don't want to attend to the meetings that need to be necessary, then you're just going to have to go to the government and get them to contract out, because I'm not going to keep putting up with your fucking bullshit. So literally, that aside, I'm dealing with fuckwits, and the people that I'm dealing with, the team that I'm dealing with, I don't want to deal with, right? Because they're clueless, and they're malicious, and they're belligerent. You know what I mean? And yeah, they're just barbaric. You know, they just cause more. They're just cruel. They're just cruel people, and they're under instructions from their bosses, and you know, that's just the way I have to live. So I haven't taken this up with my new GP because one, I don't want to start a conflict with her, and two, I don't want to get upset at things that are upsetting me all the time. And she's a nice enough lady, you know. I really just, I'll probably refer to this videotape and ask her to look at it and understand exactly where I'm coming from, rather than sit there and have any disputes or any, you know, any animosity over it. At the end of the day, ACC has not covered me for the post-traumatic stress they've caused me. And the reason for that is that bad medical professionals, like Reese Tapsell, like all these psychologists, I can't even remember the name of one psychologist actually, they haven't documented what needs to be documented. And they're allowing these people to literally step outside the rule of law whenever it suits their purpose, and not document the impacts that they're having on victims' lives. So, how did I get that from sleeping? I mean, you say, like, I haven't been able to put that together for years, but I've actually been able to put it together in one night. But then again, I live this case 24/7, so it's a hard thing to deal with. It's a hard thing to live with, and I don't think that anything's going to be achievable until my life is out of the hands of these vigilantes, which is part and parcel why all their injuries that they've caused me are covered up, even the abuse, the threats, the intimidation, and the violence. And then leading to post-traumatic stress. This is why they've covered all this up, to enable this organization to remain in complete criminal control of my life, which then brings human rights abuses into it. It brings different elements into it of the overall criminality. And I think that's literally what people need to realize, is that McGreevy has taken it from, if he had a dispute with me, he had an obligation under jurisprudence to take it to court, right? He took it to the Queen's Counsel and realized that he'd, completely fucked up. And he put himself in so much, he tried to get the Queen's Counsel to deal with hearsay, lies, innuendo, speculation and manufacturing. And it all backfired on him. And I don't know if McGreevy had anything to do with the $20,000 payment. I mean, they say it's, he had something to do with something, but he definitely had a lot to hide over the false declaration he made in my name. And I don't know how the case manager went to do what he did. But I'm sitting there and I'm thinking to myself, I could look at that in a million different ways. But the bottom line is, someone crossed the line into personal. And McGreevy then tried to cover his own ass. That's all I can see. I don't know if he had anything to do with it, or if he had everything to do with it. But you give 1% of doubt and you get something to hide behind. And that's what McGreevy's done. He's given himself, that's what Elsa Duffy's done. She gave him that 1% to hide behind. And to continue destroying my life for another 13 years. And it's things like that people don't actually get to the point of putting all the facts on the table. And they're letting someone step outside the rule of law to then become their own judge, jury, and executioner, to then become their own vigilante, to then become their own, funding their own crimes from behind their administrations. So there's no doubt that McGreevy went from natural law and justice to that of being his own vigilante and state terrorist, trying to, what would you say? It's itching. I'm totally confused as to exactly where I'm going from here, because my mind is, I'm trying to think about what I was sleeping about, and I'm giving it to you straight off the top of my head. He's taken it from natural law into his own vigilantism. Then he's paying his staff to be his line of attack. Then he's trying to turn everybody into victims, because he himself is nothing but a terrorist in my life, and literally getting away with murder. And everybody in a position of power is going, oh, not my problem, not my problem, not my problem. Well, it's my fucking problem. So, and when you're not following the rule of law, and you're not following the jurisprudence of the law, and you're not following the natural way of law, and you're going out to use fear and violence to basically criminally contain a victim's life, criminally contain a situation, making agreements and then reneging upon them. It's, yeah. And then straight after that, then having your victim state criminal kidnapped on 1% of bullshit again. It's just ridiculous. But for the last 7 years, it's like 4 years of illegal and unlawful stopping of all my rights and entitlements. And then 3 years of putting up with the bullshit that I'm dealing with in ACC now. And Scott Pickering and all the rest of that garbage. You know, there's too many questions left unanswered. And this is not rehabilitation. This is post-traumatic stress for any victim. This is vigilantism, and this is state terrorism. And they literally work for criminally containing people's lives using fear and violence to hide behind, and then singling out, isolating, alienating their victims. And then spoon-feeding them shit. But dealing with half your injuries, and not even dealing with half your injuries, because the injuries that they're dealing with, you had a lawyer declare them as permanent. But they're not dealing with the post-traumatic stress, they're not dealing with the trauma, they're not dealing with the abuse, the threats, the intimidation, the violence. Nobody's dealing with it. You've been denied access to all your privacy information, you've been denied access to all the names of all the vigilantes involved, you've been denied access to who was all involved in the secret meeting and how did this take place and who all attended it. Nobody signed into Parliament, but yet they were all there. On the 20th of June 2007 that led to the state criminal kidnapping of me. Then you've got the likes of Curra Seymour should be done for perjury because the evidence proves he committed perjury in a court of law. You've got all that going on. But the most interesting part of it in terms of legislation and law is that the injury claims have not been put forward by the medical experts or specialists involved because they don't want to write it up that ACC is responsible for everything that I've had to go through and everything that I'm suffering from in relation to the post-traumatic stress and the trauma and everything else. They want to put it down to my original injuries, and they can go fuck themselves. They caused all this. They did all this to my life with fear and violence, abuse, threats, intimidation, harassment, criminal harassment, and state criminal kidnapping. So they're the reason that I'm in this situation, and I've been held criminally to blackmail, stagnant, and stalemate because of their actions. So I think the doctor needs to, some medical expert needs to sit up and get this properly written, which is why I wanted to go back and see a proper forensic psychiatrist who actually knows how to write a report properly, who's not being paid by a vigilante-run organization to leave out all the facts of their actions and their corruption and criminality. Anyway, I wanted to put that down on record, and I'm posting this, and you can all think what you like of it. But McGreevy definitely stepped outside the rule of law to commit his crimes in this case. Of that, there's no question. Okay, thanks.